Hello, this is the Global News podcast from the BBC World Service, with reports and analysis from across the world. The latest news 7 days a week. BBC World Service podcasts are supported by advertising.
This is the Global News podcast from the BBC World Service. I'm Jackie Leonard, and at 14 hours GMT on Wednesday, the 27th of November, these are our main stories. 7 radical Islamists behind the deaths of 22 people in a gun attack on a Bangladeshi cafe have been sentenced to death. Zimbabwe's doctors' strike intensifies as the country's health system struggles to cope, and French farmers have used tractors to block roads into Paris as they protest over their living conditions. Also in this podcast, progress being made in battling the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and
there was a lot of times like, are you sure you want him to do your makeup? He's a guy. My friend, they asked her to not work on the front desk because they thought that she was too ugly and too fat.
A BBC investigation uncovers allegations of widespread bullying in the British beauty industry. The 12-hour siege was the deadliest Islamist attack Bangladesh had experienced. 22 people, mostly Italian and Japanese, were shot dead at a cafe in the capital Dhaka in July 2016. Now, a court has passed sentence on some of those involved in its planning.
Today,
the court has given its verdict in the cafe attack. In this case, the tribunal has given 7 people the death sentence, and 1 was acquitted.
That's the public prosecutor Mahamel Hokbouia speaking outside the court. This man told reporters at the time how he managed to escape.
I was working in the pizza kitchen and saw 2 men begin their attack. People ducked for cover or started to run. I managed to make it onto the roof of the building. They were throwing bombs and the windows were shaking.
Our correspondent Yogitala Maye has been following the court case and told Jonathan Savage about the men who've been sentenced.
These are men who were accused of plotting the attack, but also supplying weapons to the gunmen who actually carried out the attack. The judge said the charges against them had been proved beyond any doubt. The defense lawyer for the convicted men says that they will appeal. The men are, reported to have told the courtroom that they did nothing wrong, as they were walked away from the courtroom. The attackers were actually killed by the Bangladeshi military, right after the siege and the standoff.
So remind us what actually happened in that attack.
This attack took place in Dhaka on the 1st of July in 2016, on the evening, actually, at the Holy Artisan Bakery. This is a cafe which is in quite a posh neighbourhood of Dhaka. 5 gunmen stormed into this cafe and they took diners hostage. They were carrying guns as well as machetes. They killed 22 people. Some of them were shot dead. Some of them were also hacked to death. But they also took hostages. 2 policemen were also killed, and that's when the Bangladeshi army was actually called in. And after a 12-hour standoff, the Bangladeshi army managed to free 13 hostages, and they killed the 5 attackers as well.
Now, the Bangladeshi government have long denied any Islamic State presence in the country. What's been their response since that attack?
Well, Islamic State had claimed responsibility for this attack, actually, but Bangladesh says that this is a domestic Islamist militant group called Jamaat ul-Mujahideen Bangladesh. This is, however, a group that has sort of pledged allegiance to Islamic State in that sense. They did launch a pretty sort of intense crackdown on militancy after this attack. It was the deadliest militant attack that the country has ever seen. What the government itself has said is that they killed the mastermind of this attack in January 2017. And since then, they say that they have killed about 50 Islamist militants in the country.
Yogitala Maye speaking to Jonathan Savage. In Zimbabwe, senior doctors from public hospitals have come out on strike in support of their junior colleagues who are already taking industrial action. They say they're protesting against the firing of more than 400 doctors, the withholding of salaries and the summoning of colleagues to disciplinary hearings. Jonathan found out more from our correspondent in Harare, Shinganyoka.
Junior doctors have been on strike for about 2.5 months, and essentially they are pressing for what they call a living wage because of this triple-digit inflation and this economic crisis that's affected Zimbabwe over the last year. Their salaries have dropped from about the equivalent of $500 a month to now about just less than $100 a month. And so what they are saying is they want salaries pegged in US dollars, but equivalent to what they used to earn. And so they've been away from work, and the senior doctors have been covering for them. But those doctors have now walked off the job. They say that they want the doctors reinstated because hundreds of these doctors were fired following disciplinary actions. And the senior doctors are also saying that the promises that the government has made to bring more equipment into these hospitals hasn't been fulfilled.
So what's it like if you need to go into hospital as a patient in Zimbabwe?
This specifically is for the public hospitals, and I was there a short while ago to gauge the impact of this strike. I met a young woman there who was assaulted by her husband. Her eye was damaged, and she was pregnant, and she says she couldn't feel her baby moving. And she went to one public hospital and was told that because there are no doctors there, she had to go to another. And what other people within that hospital said is that there are only army doctors in the emergency ward. And so if someone's problem is very basic, they'll be attended to, but the services that require specialists are not being attended to. So it's a very dire situation.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely desperate. So what's the health ministry saying or doing to help end the strike?
The government has dug in its heels. It has continued with the disciplinary actions and says close to 450 junior doctors have been fired. There are disciplinary hearings for another 150. They've also served notice to the senior doctors who began their strike literally less than 24 hours ago. So they are taking a very hard stance, backed up by the Labour Court, which has ruled that the junior doctors' strike was illegal because they're an essential service. And so there's a standoff here, but it's the patients that are the victims and the patients that are suffering the most.
That was Shingai Nyoka, our correspondent in Harare. Farmers in France are blocking major roads leading to Paris in protest at what they say are their worsening living conditions. Others are demonstrating on the Champs-Élysées. From Paris, Hugh Schofield reports.
French farmers say their lives are increasingly precarious. Incomes keep falling as hard bargaining from supermarkets eats into their profits, and a new free trade agreement between the EU and Canada looms as another threat. But beyond purely financial considerations, farmers feel their position in society is in question, with campaigns against meat production and pesticides getting increasingly vocal, what they call agri-bashing. They're asking President Macron to step in to protect what they say is becoming an endangered profession.
Hugh Schofield. One of Catalonia's largest pro-independence parties has begun a consultation asking its members whether the group should support socialist leader Pedro Sánchez in his attempt to form a government. The party is demanding a promise of dialogue from Madrid on the issue of Catalan independence. Tensions have been high since Spain's Supreme Court gave Catalan leaders lengthy jail sentences for their role in an outlawed referendum in 2017. The protests, which drew the world's attention last month, are being run by a new, mysterious group of activist organisations, as Tim Smith reports from Barcelona.
The Supreme Court in Madrid has given 9 Catalan separatists lengthy jail terms. Pro-independence groups in Catalonia have called for mass civil disobedience.
Police in Barcelona say they were attacked with petrol bombs and acid during...
This is a snapshot of how international media covered the aftermath of the Spanish Supreme Court's decision to sentence pro-independence Catalan leaders to as much as 13 years in prison. The civil disobedience has been coordinated by a new group of activist organisations who are organising in secret to avoid detection. I was invited to one of their covert meetings where group leaders were educating activists